Howdy, and welcome back to week 2 of the H.I.T.I Hot Take Codedown, the Lone Star Halo, Vince the Angels Cowboy. We're going to talk about how red hot this team is and why a certain key cornerstone of this franchise is going to make his first All-Star game in 2025. All that, and I'm sure much more, coming up.
Texas plains, hot takes flying, riding off the reins. Lone Star Halo, Cowboy Vince, calling it bold, never on the fence. Hold down time, turn it up loud. Hot takes are ringing, drawing a crowd. No matter how wild, no matter how strange, ain't no limit on the takes we say.
As stated, everybody, welcome to week 2 of the Angels H.I.T.I Hot Take Hoedown. Vince, as always, thanks for coming on to our show. Say hi to the people.
Hey, everybody. Good to see y'all or hear from y'all if you're listening. And, man, what a wonderful 2 weeks we've had to kick off this season. And not only that, the month of April. And as they say, the flowers start to bloom, but I think there's more than flowers blooming around this time, and they tend to be red, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. Yes, we're obviously still early on in this season. You know, let's not create cow pies that we don't need to step in just yet. But I will say it is exciting 2 weeks into the season, right? I would much rather be on this side where we're playing good games for 2 weeks because really, besides opening day, there really hasn't been a lot of terrible baseball.
No, and I think it's not just with us, but it's all around too. And there's certain teams that you don't expect to get hot, and they have, especially in the NL West in particular. There's even some teams in the East. I mean, that's the beauty of baseball, but there's the thing I say about baseball, it's a love-hate relationship. You can go off to a hot start, but then you finish cold at the end. You can go through a cold start, but you finish hot at the end. You know, it's like and that's what makes it unique. And I think that's why a lot of baseball fans still exist, because they like the unpredictability, and we're part of that group. And there's nothing that can change that. I mean, you can change the game as much as you can. You can make the pace quicker, of course, with the pitch clock and the time and limited timeouts or in the box, limited anything. But it doesn't matter to us because something is bound to happen one way or another.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing I've always loved about baseball. I know Todd and I kind of butt heads about this all the time. You know, he's a big football guy. I don't like football like I used to. I feel like football has the least amount of parity of all the major sports. It's always the same kind of teams that are making it. There's always one dynasty that's kind of running away with it every single year. You know, it was the Patriots. Now it's the Chiefs. So in baseball, you really don't have a lot of those repeat teams winning. Yeah, I mean, Yankee fans love to talk about, 27 rings. Okay, but how many of those rings did you win when, you know, it was actually competitive in Major League Baseball?
Yeah, when you had 16 teams, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You guys won most of those rings when, you know, African Americans weren't allowed to play baseball in the major leagues. You won most of those where you guys were literally competing against plumbers. You know what I mean? But nowadays, there's so much parity in the game of baseball. I mean, we haven't had a back-to-back championship, really. We've had once or twice in this millennium, and it was the Yankees?
Yeah, 99 and 2000 was the last time back-to-back, and, of course, the three-peat from 98 to 2000. But, yeah, other than that, we've come close to back-to-backs in the past. I mean, I think the last closest back-to-back championship we could have had, maybe Kansas City, but Kansas City, of course, they lost to in 14, so it really doesn't count. But
I mean, you have the Giants winning 3 in 6 years. So,
yeah,
I mean,
Yeah, but it didn't happen consecutively, and
Exactly.
that's how you know how tough it is in baseball to be to go consecutive. And I think part of the reason has to be the free agency era, because you look at you look at even in football, how many of those players are franchise players? How many Chiefs players are franchise players? How many Patriot players were franchise players? They kept a core together. And then you look at basketball, when the Lakers dynasty with Kobe and Shaq, how many were core players? You look at the Warriors, how many of they had their core four? And then baseball, that core four usually lasts like 1 or 2 years at best. And because once you have that one starter who was part of that core, they're in their contract year and they say, you know what? I did my part here. I won a championship with the franchise I grew up. Now it's time to get paid. And that's totally the reason why baseball, you don't see many repeat champions.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the beauty in baseball. Like, it seems like nowadays you have to have a core before you add to it. And that's how you win a championship. I mean, look at the Cubs in 2016. You know, you mentioned those Royals teams, those Giants teams. They had their core group and they used free agency to plug up some holes. That's the point of free agency. What the Angels have been doing in the Arte Moreno era is trying to buy a championship in many cases, right? Hamilton, Pujols, Upton, you can't even say Otani because he was signed from international free agency. But the point is, like, they were trying to get all these major pieces with like Rendon, etc. And it doesn't work anymore. You know what? Like back when we were growing up, you and I are about the same age. The Yankees were the evil empire because they were buying everybody and they were winning championships, but it just doesn't work these days. What team can you name that has legitimately bought a bunch of players lately that's been successful? People are going to say the team up the I-5. Okay, sure.
Sure, yeah.
They really been that successful? Say what you want about them making the playoffs, but they've won a legitimate world championship, and I mean that's it.
Well, I think we're going to find out this year. I mean, if the way that I see it, if you talk about the guys up the I-5, we have to look at what's going to happen in this season. If they do go back to back, then maybe you can make the argument of the quote buy a championship, because you look at their starting nine. How many of that starting nine are homegrown players? So far, all I can think off the top of my head is Will Smith. And he's been there since day one. He got drafted out of Louisville.
Yeah, I mean Max Muncy isn't a Dodger draftee, but I'll consider him. You know what I mean? Because I mean the A's gave up on him. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and then you got Freddie Freeman, who was a free agent. You got Mookie, who was a trade
and sign.
Yeah, and then there's Kike, who was also a trade from Houston. I mean, maybe he grew a bit, but he still had some major league years under his belt before he came to LA. And then I mean, I hate to say, like Tommy Edman, he's a trade, but he also he signed an extension.
He was a role player with the Cardinals, and now he's kind of getting a legitimate chance.
Yeah, Chris Taylor was a Mariner that didn't succeed, and then he needed a change of scenery. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty tough. I think the Yankees are there with the way they ran the Steinbrenner era and what the evil empire time. That's the reason why the free agency has come around, or it's big now, because when he built or bought, however you want to put it. I mean, you make the argument 2009 was probably bought when Teixeira and Sabathia and Burnett signed in that era or that year. And Nick Swisher, you throw him in there as well. But the Yankees still had some veteran core. They still had Jeter. They still had Posada. They still had Rivera. Andy Pettitte returns. But at the same time, like, yeah, there were some free agent pieces. Like Johnny Damon was also on that team. But I know that, like, I look at those Yankee era, the Yankees dynasty and the Yankees empire, that is what shifted baseball to be that, let's have the buy a championship mentality. And, I hate to say this, but the team that's guilty of it right now that could be in that mix, we just go to the 5 South. That's pretty bold for me to say.
Yeah, all right. Go cheer for the Padres.
Yeah, because you look at their roster too. They're just as I remember last year. It was actually 2 years. I think it was last year. It was before Jackson Merrill got called up, but it said the Padres were the first team to have an opening day lineup of non-homegrown players, which means everybody they got was either a free agent or a trade. You had I think Austin Nola was in a trade, or Jay Cronenworth was also in a trade. Tatis was in a trade. Bogarts was a free agent. Ha-Seong Kim was a international free agent. Machado free agent too. Grisham was I think a trade as well. Yeah, so you can make the argument too that the Padres are trying to be in the mix with the Dodgers, and they're seeing what the Dodgers are doing, unless they probably did it first. Because you look at when the trend of buying players started for the Padres, it started with Machado in 2019.
I mean, really, if you want to be honest, it probably started in 2015 when they got Matt Camp, Justin Upton, Will Myers, James Shields, and that just failed spectacularly.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. I mean, we'll see what happens with the Padres if they're able to compete with the big bad team in blue up to 5, and we'll see if it works out for the Dodgers again. I, for one, hope not. But time will tell. I do want to bring it back to our Angels.
Of course.
A lot of homegrown guys who are having success in the early going. Kyron Paris being that guy this year. As we continue to see him grow, I'm starting to get a little more confident saying, you know what? I don't think this is a flash of the pan. My worry was that this was a Linsanity type run. A lot of people remember Jeremy Lin, right? One of the greatest basketball players of all time for 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
yeah. Hey, for those 2 weeks, he was the dude. You know what I mean? And he lived an entire career off of those 2 weeks. And for a while, I was like, well, maybe that's just Kyron Paris' spring training. Maybe that's just his first week of the season. You know what I mean? Okay, now it's like, okay, what's the second week? And all in all, it's been almost 2 months. You know what I mean? If we're counting spring training. So at some point, you have to start looking at the numbers and, his hard hit percentage, his barrel percentage, all that is up. He's in like the 90 percentile in almost every positive offensive category this year on Baseball Savant. And that is great. That is showing you that this guy is making solid contact. He's taking walks. People are actually scared to face him. This is great for the Angels. This is a guy that none of us even took seriously, right? Like, let's face it, this offseason, nobody was talking about Kyron Paris.
No, everyone was talking about another kid that that plays the same position as him, as Christian Moore, because that was the front runner to be the starting second baseman or be the kid, the call up of the season. Because it seemed like every single year we had like our call up of the year. Like Nolan Shanawa was the call up of 2022 or 2023, excuse me. Then last year, I mean, probably Kahanowitz, or maybe. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but. Kyron Paris, I will say this, though. I have to give credit to one person in particular on why he is succeeding. And that guy plays on the East Coast, and it's Aaron Judge. Because both guys are from Northern California. They still live in Northern California. Kyron Paris is from Oakley, California, to be specific. And they have the same hitting instructors during the offseason. And one little note that I watched, I believe it was on MLB Network, that Kyron Paris has a similar stride to Aaron Judge. If you watch the comparisons, they have the same exact sort of leg kick. They had the same exact, not wide open stance as Judge. Well, Judge kind of closed it up just a little bit. But if you look, it almost is eerily similar. So whatever Kyron Paris this offseason.
They use the same hitting coach.
Yeah, but it was just amazing to hear that. And at first it didn't make any sense. It's like, well, how did Kyron Paris have the same hitting instructor as Aaron Judge? But then it clicked. Wait, Aaron Judge still has a house out here in the Bay Area in the offseason. And, of course, Kyron goes back to his neighborhood up north. So I think people forget that a lot of players, just because they play somewhere else doesn't mean they train there. And there's, especially the California players, the Southern California players, they definitely don't train where they are because they play in winter cities. I mean, like Lucas Giolito is an example. He still trains out here in Orange County. And Jaron Duran, even though he plays in Boston, he still trains out here in Southern California. So yeah, it was pretty nice to hear that Aaron Judge's hitting instructor has made a difference for Kyron Paris, and you just got to keep it up. And I don't think it's going to happen, but I hope the Angels don't try to tinker with him. I think they're seeing like, hey, whatever's working. Like, just do your thing, kid.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is still almost batting 400 where we currently sit. He's batting 393. And that's on top of his spring where he was batting north of 400 as well. So it's like, just let him roll. I'm just one of those guys, so I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we're gonna find that he was hanging out with Jerickson Profar or something like that. So as long as that's not the case, man, I mean, he's a young kid. Billy Epler drafted a lot of guys who had high ceilings. And, the floor just unfortunately was just always so astronomically low that, we waited so long for Joe Adell to start clicking. And we kind of started to see it a little bit last year, right? Joe Adell's defense started getting to a good tier. And we saw his power officially flash and show off in the majors because he always had the power down in AAA, but, the PCL, the ball flies. So it was nice to see Joe Adell get to that point at the major league level last year, and now we're kind of starting to see it again this season. So hopefully Joe Adell is starting to figure something out. And the only reason I bring that up is because Kyron Paris, same kind of thing. Very athletic guy drafted by Billy Epler. The potential was always kind of there. Now he finally is seemingly putting it all together. This guy's only 23 years old. Yeah. That's what a lot of us forget.
Yeah.
That's still at the age where most guys are just getting out of college, at 23.
Yeah. And another note I like to make, too, about how this team is as well and this hot start. There is a big culture change from what I have been seeing. And you and I talked about this back in our first hot take, our preseason hot take, that basically the introduction. And there was no culture. There was nothing there in the in the Ohtani era. And last year, I think there was the whole, like, kind of the bum culture of like, man, like we're not going to be with Shohei anymore, and it just hit the team a little bit. But this culture is a lot different. And I think it has to do with the kids, or not even think it 100% has to do with the kids that are here. Kyron Paris is one of them. Joe Adell's still kind of a kid. I mean, he's a little bit older in season, but he still has fun as best as he can whenever he gets playing time. Now that he's an almost everyday player, yeah, he's totally having a lot of fun and showing it. And now those, I think they're just living it up just a bit, and they're feeding off of it. And I think I haven't seen Mike Trout smile in a while, even though, to quote you, Fernando, the mugshot that he has been taking the last few years, he hasn't smiled. This year he didn't smile in the mugshot, so I don't know what happened there, but he's picking up just a little bit. He's, in fact, what I've noticed too, compared to the last few years, he's actually more active on Instagram right now. He's posting victories on Instagram. And I remember last year, every game we won, he didn't post anything on his stories. And now you see every victory. And when somebody does something successful, I think he's shared Kyron Paris's post. He's shared Kenley Jensen when he got number 450 on Monday, or Tuesday, excuse me, on his save. Yeah, I think this is something that Mike Trout needed, and it's coming along. And it can only grow up from here. And guess what? There's a group of young guys who are dying to come up here. Christian Moore in particular, and there's a couple other players that definitely enjoy playing this game and want to compete and want to win. Only time will tell, and it can't come any sooner.
Yeah, and the good news is the Angels are doing all of this winning and they're winning games that last year they would have gotten annihilated in, right? Like a lot of these have been hard fought wins, and a lot of people are going to say, like, well, they faced the White Sox, they faced the Cardinals, they faced the Rays. Okay, I mean, that's all fine and dandy, but I mean, Cleveland isn't a bunch of slouches either. They've made a lot of AL Central. They've won a lot of division championships. Sorry, that was the term I was looking for.
No, I get you. Yeah.
But my point is the Angels have been winning the games they wouldn't have won in the past, at least not the past couple of years. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what this team could do when they start adding Zach Neto back into the mix. I mean, they're doing this with Newman, who isn't really doing too much offensively. I would much rather have Newman out there than Jack Lopez like we did last year.
Yeah.
But, I'm excited for the ceiling of this team. I'm still not going to say something crazy like, hey, playoffs, here we come. But, it's fun to make those jokes. It's fun to listen to the audience making those jokes. I mean, I'd much rather be in the situation that we're in right now than just waiting for another game to just be over with because we got annihilated yet again.
Well, at the same time, you also have to remember that this is a marathon. And right now, it's great to get into come out of the gates clean, but you still have to remember that June comes around. June gloom kicks in. July with the All-Star break, you only have that week off that is going to, or not even, well, kind of a week, but to help you recover. And then the dog days of August when the weather starts heating up and the humidity kicks up, that comes into effect. And then, of course, September is when it was, the best time of the year when it comes to baseball because we have the playoff races. So, yeah, you're right. You do want to be on the safe side of starting off pretty hot, but at the same time, you have to remember, like, this is a Western themed show, but you got to pull the reins back just a bit. It's like you have the stagecoach is set and you're ready to keep it running, but at the same time, you don't have to rush that delivery. You don't have to rush whoever you're carrying in the carriage. You still have to slow down a bit because your horses need a rest. And we have the horses for sure. We just have to run them correctly.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. That's a great analogy. I like that you tied it back into the theme.
Well, I have to. I mean, come on.
That's fair. It's the brand.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. As we transition here to the main topic of today's show, I think we're both excited, man. The Angels fan base is excited. We're energized, and it's a good feeling to be in 2 weeks into the season. And it's nice to be excited to turn on a baseball game again. You know what I mean? Because at least you're going to watch a decent game. I don't mind losing. There's a lot of just people who are like, oh, these guys hate this team. We've gotten that all the time in this network. I don't mind watching a losing game as long as there was good baseball involved.
And learning from it too, because
Exactly.
That's key. It's like, I mean, we talked about it in the first one, like learn from your mistakes and come out there and just have fun and don't think about what happened yesterday. And I think that's what the team had today after the Wednesday night loss. Yeah, it was pretty tough. And there was some good stuff where we had the home runs, but to quote Todd from his post-game show, you can't rely on the long ball. And that's what they were doing on that Wednesday night game. And for the Thursday game, the day game, they didn't think about the loss the day before. They figured like, look, okay, we did our part. We had one mistake. Our starter had one mistake, but that shouldn't hurt us. That shouldn't let us down. And sure enough, they score 11. And that's what you have to do with baseball is you have to just flush it. And I think I think the cell phone policy helped out a bit because if the guys were still on their cell phone, they're going to see like, oh, this happened. This grand slam happened the day before. It's like, oh, man, why do you have to remind me? Well, get off your phone.
Yeah. They're not listening to the Todd Fuss post-game show where Todd's ranting about giving up a grand slam. That's probably what it is.
Yeah.
That's fine. At least we're part of the solution in Anaheim because now they're not involved. They're not watching the show anymore. So before we get into today's topic, as we try to wrap up here, I do want to go ahead and thank our sponsors, Brewheim. Make sure you mention Halos in the infield when you head on over there. Make sure you go to 714 tickets so there's no hidden fees like the other guys. Make sure you use code H.I.T.I at checkout. You get 10% off of all purchases. That's good for almost every single event you could possibly think of. I'd use it for wrestling tickets. People have used it for concerts. I mean, we hear from the audience all the time. I even see it on Twitter. Hey, people telling other people to use our code. So we greatly appreciate that support. Underdog Fantasy, I will play that momentarily, and then make sure to head on over to the OC Dugout. Speaking of Underdog Fantasy, let's take a quick second to listen to the ad.
Hey Todd, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at the Underdog app sponsored by Halos in the Infield. Actually, you can punch in H.I.T.I and get the promo code 20% earnings on your first bet via Underdog, the app. And also, they match 50% up to $1,000 winnings if you place bets. You could put them on players. You could put it on teams. It's a nightly thing. It's so easy to play, but also gamble responsibly. All because of Halos in the Infield and Underdog, the app.
All right, Vince, do you have the hot take in front of you? Do you remember what it was? I mean, I have it, but
Of course I do, because it was my idea, not to toot my own horn, but yeah. Logan Hoppe will be a 2025 American League All-Star this season. And I know it's early, but it's a hot take hoedown for a reason. Because, first off, what a start he's had. And he didn't have the best spring. I'm not going to lie about it. He struggled a bit in the spring, but you know what? I have noticed in spring training from the years I've watched it, at least now that I'm older and I understand the game a lot more compared to when I was in college and high school. But I've noticed that veterans sometimes struggle a little bit in spring training, but they're getting work in because some of those guys are guaranteed opening day starters. But when they struggle, you get a little worried, but you really shouldn't because, look, they're still getting into the mix. They're still, seeing the ball and reacting to certain pitches. But then you see these young players that are just, if they light up the scoreboard, you feel like, oh, there's a lot of hope. But here's a reason why. Number one, they're pushing for a playoff spot. They're pushing for a opening day roster spot. And number two, they've played in winter leagues in the off season. You look at there's players who have played in the Arizona Fall League. You look at the players that have played in that league and they go into spring training and they just light it up. And then you're like, wait a minute, how are they doing so good? Well, because they got work in not too long ago. So going back to Logan Hoppe, yeah, he had his struggles, but he was just getting work in to make sure that he was seeing pitches and he was looking okay. He was working on on his swings. And now I think since he's back in the groove and seeing real major league pitching, he's very confident. And I mean, he's always been a confident guy, but I also believe too that he is 100% healthy. That shoulder that he had issues with back in 2022 is back to 100%. I mean, who knows how it was last year or 2 years ago. Oh, actually, it was 2023. I'm sorry, but I got my years mixed up. But when he had that injury, I mean, who knows if it nagged him last year. But now that he's fully healthy, there's a lot that you can see in him. And it's the guy. He's the guy that we heard about when he was in Philly, and he's living up to it right now. So it'd be amazing to see him next to, if he picks it back up, Mike Trout. Most likely we'll see Mike Trout again, even though he has struggled a bit now. But Mike Trout knows when to light it up when healthy at the right time.
yeah, and he's slowly starting to heat up a little bit too. He's starting to look a little bit better in the box. He had that error in right field a couple days ago, but I can give him a free pass on that, right? I mean, he played center field for so long. I would imagine it's a bit of an adjustment. Even Superman has a weakness. So, I can give Mike Trout a little bit of grace there. I think most of us can. I have Logan Hoppe's numbers pull up in front of me right now. Through 39 at-bats, obviously a very small sample size, 7 runs, 14 hits, 5 home runs, 9 RBIs. He's batting .359 with a .375 OBP. I like to see his on-base percentage go up a little bit higher. just because we know that he is a threat in the box. I mean, he's had some protection in the lineup. You know, they've had Paris behind him a couple times. I know he's still trying to find exactly where in the batting order he's going to be, especially as Neto starts to come back. We'll see where Neto goes. I think Ron Washington had mentioned he wants Neto to bat second. He wants Hoppe to be more like in the number 5 hole, is what Washington said during spring training. We'll see how that's changed, especially with the emergence of Paris. But I like what I'm seeing of Logan Hoppe. I always have. You know, the guy's always been a gamer. He's proven that he can be that franchise guy. And the good thing is, as Mike Trout starts entering the twilight of his career slowly, this team is going to need a new face of the franchise. And we have 2 guys that could potentially be him right now, and that's Zach Neto and that's Logan Hoppe. And healthy competition is a good thing. These are good friends, you know, that they speak highly of each other. You always see them laughing with each other in the dugout, and that's good. You know, there's camaraderie there. Like you said, there's a culture change happening. You know, these young guys are pushing these older guys. You know, Mike Trout, who came from the previous generation of go out there, act like you've been there before. But, you know, that brand of baseball is kind of dead, right? It's all flashy now, you know, and I think it's good for baseball because there's so many of these old heads, no offense to anybody who's old out there who's watching, who are, you know, old man, old women yell at cloud like, hey, these kids, you know, you act like you've been there before. No, you know, I like the guys pimping home runs. I like the home run celebrations. You know, the Cowboy had a couple years ago. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what started it. And, yeah, that team really didn't have a direction either. That's kind of been the Angels' way the last couple years. Not really have – what's the term I'm looking for? Not really have a sense of purpose the last couple years. But this time they do. You know what I mean? They're getting lost in the games. You're having fun. And this is how baseball should be. You're playing the kids' game, as they call it.
Yeah, it is a kids game, and to quote Little Big League, one of my favorite baseball movies. Hall of Famer Bob Lemon once said, "Baseball's made for kids. Grown-ups always screwed it up." And I mean, yeah, you can agree with that. There's because it's a business and everything, but it's just fun to see that there is a lot of fun. And going back to Logan O'Hoppe, yeah, he's having fun, and he is being a leader, and he's willing to be that leader, just like every catcher should be. But at his age, usually they're not much leaders. You don't become a leader as a catcher until you hit like maybe 28, or maybe you're an early bloomer like Buster Posey, who I think became like the guy at like 24 or something like that. But to see the type of player that he is and the hope that he gave us, and it's just great to see all these fans. You see O'Hoppe jerseys, you see those 14 out there, and you're going to see a lot of 9s too, and that's really good to see because I have this bold like statement that I make, and a lot of people actually agree with me on it. You know how good a team is based off how many different jerseys and T-shirts you see of other players. Case in point, I hate to bring him up, but the guy is up to 5. How many jerseys you see? You see Ohtani, you see Betts, you see Freeman, you see Kershaw, you see Hernandez. Those are the main top 5 jerseys you see. Even back in the late 2010s, it was Bellinger, Seager. You could put Will Smith in the mix, but he was still young. But and Kershaw was another one as well. But now you look at the Angels. For the last like 6-7 years, you only saw 2 jerseys, Trout and Ohtani. Where are the rest of the guys? But now that you're seeing more, you're seeing Trout, of course. You see O'Hoppe, you see Neto, who knows. Rare you see Adele. I mean, I don't see many Adeles, but he could have been that guy. He might. You never know.
That goes on marketing for the team, though, is a big thing. You go to the gift shop, you can't find those. You have to literally get one customized.
Yeah, it's tough to see that because it really shouldn't be that way. There should be more options, and I think there might be more options. I mean, Kyron Paris could be the next, extra jersey that you're going to see that you don't need to get customized. And then maybe Jose Soriano could be in the mix too for our future in the pitching. And Ben Joyce. Yeah, I was just going to say Ben Joyce. Exactly. So so to see that Logan O'Hoppe, that gives you a lot of great things to come, and the same thing with his most likely his bestie, Zach Neto. So yeah, I mean, this has to be the year for him to make the All-Star team, and if he doesn't, it's kind of understandable because he's playing on the Angels. We don't get much love. The only time we get love is when Mike Trout does something. But if he continues his streak of his home run streak, that put him on the map. But if he continues to stay consistent, if he still bats 300 by, I would say, middle of May, then you make a huge push for him because catchers aren't supposed to hit 300. And the argument that you have is, look who he's competing with. Salvador Perez is like the face of American League catchers. I mean, like even if he doesn't do so well, he could bat like 230. He'll still make the All-Star team because of Salvador Perez. He's like the big poppy of catchers. And then you have Adley Rutschman, who is the best catcher in the American League right now, in my opinion. But Logan O'Hoppe's just coming up on his heels, so it'd be cool to see O'Hoppe and Rutschman as the representatives of the American League catchers. That's my prediction right now at this time.
I agree. Two very, very good young catchers that could dominate the American League landscape for a couple years. But you heard it here, folks. You've heard it here first. That is our week 2 H.I.T.I hot take. We will be back next week for another. Vince, where can the lovely people find you?
On Instagram at Angels_Cowboy. Have it right there on the screen. But if you're listening, yes, Angels_Cowboy on Instagram.
Yeah, by the way, you did a good job on that video. You alluded to it last time. So I still won't spoil it because I want people to watch the video themselves. But it was a very out-of-the-box thing. Not exactly. I mean, if you know Vince, it's not out of the box. It fits the brand for sure. But definitely made you think.
Well, one last question. Since speaking of a video I made,
sure.
Opening day. What do you love about opening day? I'd like to hear your answer.
Everything's in front of you. No past, all future. It's one of the best. Here's the thing. Baseball is so picturesque, and it's one of the only sports that can be that picturesque. There's just something romantic about the way the field is. Baseball has a certain smell to it. There's no other sport that has that smell. You don't walk to a football stadium and think, the smells. I mean, football stadiums, they're all 100 yards. It's all cookie cutter. Sure, there's other things to look at and walk around. I mean, I've been to 3 NFL stadiums. There's not a lot of character. But when you go to like a baseball stadium, you have your traditions with opening day. You have the things you look forward to. Maybe it's Kathy's Cookies. Maybe it's the Big A Burger. Whatever the case is, it's been so long, even though it's only been a couple months. It's just, there's just a certain magic that can't get replicated like opening day delivers. So that's what I love about it.
Yeah, and I say the same exact thing. I mean, it just to see the flyover, and I when I was a kid, I never got an opportunity to see opening day, and it was pretty tough because of like school. Sometimes it'd be on a school night, or I just had other commitments to go. And but to see when I finally got old enough to make my own money and buy my own ticket, I said, you know what, I'm gonna go. So the first one I went to was back in 2022. Is when I call it the strike opening day because it started later because we had the players union strike, and it was against the Stros. And to see everything that I always been seeing on TV, the player introductions, the flyover, the flag over center field, like I never thought I would get that opportunity to see it, and to see it the first time. I went with my best friend too, which made it just as nice. And I remember looking at him, I said, I want to do this again. And I missed out on 2023, unfortunately, but 2024, I didn't want to miss that. So I went. And then this past year, might as well. And to experience all that, it's such a blessing, and it's so emotional because you realize how much you love this game, and you find out the reasons why you love this game, and you see all that. You see the patriotism of the sport. You see the fans come together, and I mean, it's kind of hard to say this, but that's the closest I've ever gotten to a playoff experience type of game, because I never got to go to the playoffs in 2014. I didn't go in 2009. Wasn't able to go to any World Series games. So I never got to know what a playoff felt like. And the closest I probably felt to a playoff experience was last year, because Logan O'Hoppe, who's the topic of the day, hit the grand slam, and how electric that was. I said, that literally felt like a playoff. The second time I felt like I was at a playoff game was when the Dodgers come into town.
Yeah, that's always a playoff like atmosphere. All right, Vince. Well, I got to record another episode with for somebody else's show, Bourbon and Baseball. Make sure to check that out. We're going to preview the Astros versus Angels series. Head on over to Susie's channel. She's been on the show before. So yeah, if you guys want any more content like that, you guys already know. Follow Vince at Angels_Cowboy. Follow us at H.I.T.I Halos in the Infield. It's always a pleasure. We will see you guys here next time. Bye, everyone.
Y'all come back now.